Welcome to ComposersCape. My name is Jess Hendricks. This is the premiere episode of ComposersCape, and I will be discussing what the show is about, what you can expect in future episodes, and also I'll have a long segment on Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is something that's been on the forefront of my interest recently. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy. So who am I and what is ComposersCape about? First off, I am Jess Hendricks. I am a composer, a software developer, hobby artist, and that pretty much covers it for now. I tend to consider myself a bit of a Renaissance person. I love learning new things. ComposersCape is going to be a bit of a potpourri slash random chaotic discussion of things I'm interested in. Movies will be hit on, especially fantasy, science fiction, superhero movies a lot. I've been on a superhero movie kick for years now. Music will obviously be the focus of several episodes. I'm sure I want to break down film scores, talk about new music especially. I might hit on things like equality in the classical music industry, which has been at the forefront of the discussion recently. Last but not least, I will sometimes just talk about random things. I know there'll probably be some segments on Dungeons and Dragons, which I've gotten back into after like 20 years. 3D animation software is a hobby of mine, and I might talk about some of my software development that I like to do, and I also do, to pay the bills. All in all, it'll be a pretty interesting ride, and I hope you all come along for it. I'm going to start this episode off with a discussion of Zack Snyder's Justice League coming up right now. Ever since I was a kid, I always loved the Justice League. So when it was announced a few years ago that Zack Snyder would be directing several Justice League movies, I was pretty excited. But long story short, the tragedy struck the Snyder family, and then there was some behind-the-scenes sketchiness, a lot of it. And the result ended up being a trimmed down, rescripted, almost completely reshot Frankenstein's monster of a movie. Warner was attempting to emulate Marvel's success by imitating their formula, a lighter, kind of more joking formula. They even brought in the former director of the first two Avengers movies, Joss Whedon, which is a whole nother story for another day. In the end, almost all of the movie shot by Zack Snyder was reshot. The story was almost completely changed. Cyborg was supposed to be a central character in the story, but he ended up being relegated to a small part of the team. The result was a disaster. The budget for the movie ballooned, and it was met with lukewarm reception by fans. It didn't even make back its budget. I don't think. I don't know. I don't know the numbers. But almost immediately after its release, some fans began clamoring for the director's original vision. The release the Snyder Cut movement was born. Now, I could wax poetic of the entire history of the whole thing, but there's a book coming out by Sean O'Connell that tells the whole story. It's called Release the Snyder Cut, the crazy true story behind the fight that saved Zack Snyder's Justice League. And that's available on Amazon. Initially, I wrote, back when the Release the Snyder Cut started, I wrote it all off as just a small group of people that were desperate to see something that, at best didn't even exist, or wouldn't see the light of day. Warner Brothers would never do it. Nothing like that had ever happened with a movie where one version comes out and then they release an entirely different one. But then in the fall of 2019, I was given hope. I actually followed the Save the Expanse TV show campaign. And after that worked, I was like, oh, hey. So then I said, let's look into this Snyder Cut thing. And searching around social media, I found the video that's where someone asked Zack if he had the cut, and he said that it did exist, and that it was done and it was up to Warner Brothers. Well, that's also when I jumped on board. That's when things really started ballooning. And after a long campaign in May, finally, Zack Snyder announced that his cut would be made on HBO Max, with a little help from Henry Cavill during an online watch party of Man of Steel. But here's the interesting part. In the months since that announcement, we have learned a few interesting tidbits. It won't actually be the mythical Snyder Cut, really. The 214 minutes. If you followed that, you know what that means. Instead, he's taking all of this footage and creating a 4-part miniseries or series on HBO Max, with each episode being an hour long. This is huge news. I've, in the last few years, always thought the best format for telling a really good story recently has been these short series. You know, shows like Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, and The Mandalorian have shown that a nice, concise season is a wonderful way to tell a story without, needless filler episodes. I'm often reminded of the episode of Lost with that couple and the spiders that paralyze you, and it's like, what did this have to do with anything? And then very recently, when it started being hinted that the Justice League would possibly be a series, I said, wow, what if Zack Snyder did a series? He always wants to tell these big, in-depth stories. All his movies end up being long, and he's always having to make concessions to cut them down, because the problem with the cinema format is that that 3+ hour movies are, or were, problematic from a business perspective. I love long movies, but it's just not great in the industry. They don't like them. Not only that, not only is he doing this bigger version, we're getting his original version, the darker version. I don't know why, but I've loved the darker DC aesthetic. Even in Shazam and Aquaman, we had some dark elements to the story, and I just think it works in this universe. It separates it from Marvel and makes it something different. So, you can watch both and be entertained for different reasons. So with Zack Snyder's Justice League, we are getting the original Steppenwolf. Not the half-baked version from the theatrical release. This will be the spiky motherfucker, as he has been referred to by Snyder in the fandom, that we saw at the end of Batman v Superman. That scene may have only been in the Ultimate Edition. Some have speculated that we're getting the Parademons revamped to look a little more like they did in the Nightmare vision of BVS. We're getting a new Nightmare scene in Justice League. That was in the trailer. Also, we are getting to see Darkseid. Darkseid was supposed to be in the original movie, got completely cut out. He's voiced, and motion capture was done by Ray Porter, a famous voice actor. That's going to be a really big deal. More on it in a bit, but this, to me, seems to confirm that they're keeping the cliffhanger ending. Maybe not. Maybe he'll find a way to wrap up in a tidy ending with 4 hours. We'll see. We're getting a more fleshed out, and it's supposed to be tragic. The story of Cyborg is tragic. We're getting Martian Manhunter, perhaps. A more serious Batman in the Flash, and who knows what else. 2021. Oh, wow, that's a long time in the future. Let's try it again. 2021 is when it's slated to release, and As you can tell, I'm pretty excited. But that isn't all. Warner Media is throwing a bunch of money at it. It's I've read a few reports the last couple of days that said the budget is around $70 million, and that's Game of Thrones money, at least for the early seasons. And that could mean a lot. I mean, if you put that much money into something, that means you're invested in it. So then you got to wonder, is there any chance we're getting his original vision, the 5-part arc, Man of Steel, BVS, and 3 Justice Leagues? I think the series format quite possibly opens the door to this possibility. But we don't know. Could this be the return of the Snyderverse? It's hard to tell, but signs are pointing to a solid maybe. What's even more telling is the DCEU's, or whatever they're calling it now, the DC Universe's focus on the multiverse. To me, it was really kicked off when Ezra Miller showed up in Crisis on Infinite Earths on the CW crossover. And there he is. And all of a sudden, the movies, the old Batman movies, everything's all in this shared multiverse. So what does the future hold for Zack Snyder's vision? I don't know. But 2021 is starting to look very exciting for DC fans. So that's my show. I plan on having another episode in the coming weeks. We'll probably get into music in that one, or if anything interesting's come up, I'll talk about that. Maybe a whole episode devoted to my dog. I'm Jess Hendricks, and this has been ComposersCape. Please like and subscribe and tell all your friends. Let's see if we can get a few viewers, and I'll only get more interesting as time passes. More dog? Okay. Have a good one.